Watem here, and welcome back to the unexpected rom-com that is Umineko When They Cry. Let us continue.
さあな。それは少なくとも今じゃない。お前が俺の言った話をちゃんと理解できて本当の魔女になった時、俺はお前を再びゲームの対戦相手だと認めるだろうよ。
そのような抽象的な言い方ではわからぬ。どうすればお前の許しを超えるのか、はっきりと聞かせよ。
いや、これで十分だ。
You need to discover for yourself rather than parrot answers.
あとはお前が考えろ。
Find real solutions.
俺が言いたいのは以上だ。理解ができないなら、ワルギリアやロノウェに相談してみろ。お前みたいなガキンチョは、まず大人の言葉に耳を傾けるところから始めやがれ。ワルギリア、ゲームは一度中断する。
Interesting.
ロノウェが代行を降りた以上、あとはベアトが対局者としてふさわしい資格を持つのを待つしかない。
了解しました。ベアトがその資格を得たと認められるまで、ゲームを対局者不在のまま進行させます。
Interesting.
ベアトもそれでよろしいですね。
異論はない。わらわは時間とゆっくり考えられる場所が欲しい。
I am interested to see where this is going.
これにて席を外してもよいか。
ああ、いいぜ。
それではまたの。
待てよ。
Oh?
そうしょぼくれた顔すんな。
それはすまんな。
Oh.
わらわは胸の内がすべて顔に出る勝負。偽れぬ。
Interesting for a game about deception in effect.
ならまだ構成の余地はあるってことだぜ。一つだけ約束する。俺はお前とのゲームに勝つかもしれないし負けるかもしれない。お前が戻ってこなけりゃ不戦勝ってこともあるだろうよ。
At that point, Bachelor stopped talking for a second. Then he spoke forcefully.
しかし絶対に俺からは降りない。お前を不戦勝にだけは絶対にしない。お前が再び俺の好敵手としてそこに座るのを俺はずっとここで待っているぞ。
バトラ様、
ありがとうなバトラ。わらわはきっとそなたに認められて戻ってくるぞ。
What is that attempt at a wink? After showing a hopeful smile for a very short while, Beato vanished. After seeing her expression as she left, Bachelor was absolutely convinced that her face could tell no lies. The 7 survivors returned to the guest house once again. By now, it was clear that those who went outside would not return alive. Rudolph's group had gone out with 2 guns and a master key, but those had been lost. It was already clear that those had been stolen by the culprit. Because the shutters were closed on the windows, they couldn't be opened even if the culprit had a master key. The front and back doors that led to the outside were all sealed by chains, and they were further blocked with sofas and tables. So only 2, right? Yeah, on the 10th twilight, the witch is revived. That's how it goes. So only 2 remain. Even if the culprit decided to break in them through violent means, it wouldn't be easy for them.
台風が今となってはむしろ幸いかもしれんな。もしも晴れていたならゲストハウスに放火するという手もあり得たかもしれん。
そもそも台風でなかったなら午前中に船が来てたわ。 それを不幸中の幸いと言えるかは微妙ね。
エヴァさん、体の具合はいかがですか？無理をされないようにしてください。
ありがとう。熱はまだ感じるけど、そんなことを言ってる場合じゃないわ。子供のためにも今は寝込んでる場合じゃない。
After crying so much in front of Hideyoshi's corpse, Eva had felt a strong self-awareness of her position as a mother, and her expression conveyed a strong will. In actual fact, her fever still hadn't gone down, and she was aware of that. She didn't keep a strong hold on herself. She felt as though her fever would make her mind hazy again. Ah, yes, it seems like a great idea. Holding a gun while having a fever and potentially being delirious. At this point, the first floor formed the final line of defense set up by Kraus, Natsui, and Eva. The children and guest Nanja had been strongly warned not to go downstairs without taking great care. If a culprit used a ladder or something, it probably wouldn't be impossible for them to attack from the second floor. But it wouldn't be easy for them to break through those sturdy shutters from such an insecure position. The second floor was relatively safe compared to the first. Battler and George had also wanted to remain on the first floor so that they could fight if the worst happened, but Eva had put a stop to that. In her mind, George was now the only member of her family. It seemed that she didn't even want to expose him to the danger of coming downstairs to the first floor. Klaus and Natsuhi could understand that feeling. Also, a great deal of time had passed since the siege began. In the second floor cousin's room, Battler, George and Jessica sat dazed, and didn't even listen to the TV that had been left on. For a while, Nanja had been with them and had tried to lend them words of encouragement. But when he realized that he might actually be having the opposite effect, he hid himself in his own room on the same second floor. George kept looking dazedly at the photographs inserted in his notebook. It was from the time he'd taken a vacation to Okinawa with Shannon. Shannon's happy smile was contained in those photos. George could remember the temperature and the humidity, the warmth and the strength of the wind, and even what he had been talking about with her at the time those photos had been taken, as clearly as though it had been yesterday. So to George, they weren't simply photos, but memories? But it ought to bring back warm memories, close enough. In the stream, even though the sound of a typhoon or a TV should have entered George's hearing, it was the scenery of Okinawa he had seen with her, and her laughing voice that reached his eyes and his ears. George had strived to be reborn after meeting Shannon. He had sworn to separate himself from the timid person he had once been, easily caught up in the atmosphere, unable to refuse a request, and easily used by those around him. He had resolved himself to become a strong man who could make her life more joyous. Therefore, if he hadn't met Shannon, a man called Utsunomiya George would probably have lived a very different life. And the George of that different life surely wouldn't have been as excellent a man as he is now. The person I am now exists for Shannon's sake. Now that Shannon is gone, why do I exist? It's completely meaningless, isn't it? He felt a deep, deep sadness, as though he himself had become empty. That feeling must have been tormenting him this whole time. However, until Battler mentioned it, he hadn't been aware of the feeling himself. He finally managed to remember that it should have been alright for him to cry much, much more. So he cried. Just like Battler had, he cried himself dry. By now, his eyes were bright red and swollen, and he couldn't cry anymore. So George did his best to change his way of thinking. It was not meaningless now, and he should be grateful to Shannon for giving him such a character. The dead don't come back to life. Yeah, people die when they get killed. He would have to get over being separated from his most beloved person. If he were to chase after Shannon and kill himself, she would surely be deeply dejected. It worked the other way around too. He had died and Shannon had chased after him, throwing away her own life. He wouldn't have been able to forgive himself. I do want to see more of that dynamic. So he chose to surpass his sadness and anger. He decided to thank her instead. After meeting Shannon, she made his days rich and full, and taught him the meaning of working hard for other people's sake. Or sakes, rather. As a result, she had shaped him into the kind of person he wanted to be. He wanted to thank her for that. He tried to quell his sadness in this way. But each time he did, he remembered Shannon's smile. He understood it logically. He knew that grieving any more than this would only make her grieve in heaven. But that didn't bring a stop to his sadness. Back to grey. Gone was a brief period of colour.
Nande, 人が死ぬってのはよ、こんなに悲しいんだろうな。
Baslan muttered. It was as though he was speaking on behalf of all humans. This question probably hadn't been directed at anyone, but Jessica answered.
別れはどんな形でも、いつも悲しいさ。でもそれが、例えば老いであるとか、何かの時間であるとか。
You have hope that the happy times can come again.
あらかじめ約束されていて、いつか訪れる別れであると分かっているものは、その悲しみを長い時間をかけて、あらかじめ薄めておくことができる。それを許されないから、突然の不幸は悲しいんだろうよ。
なるほどな。
You don't even get the chance to say goodbye.
そりゃ、病気にでもかかって、何年も昏睡状態になってりゃ、少しずつ心の整理もついてくだろうけど。
Well, it's still very rough.
ある日突然じゃ、その暇もねえもんな。
本来なら、数年をかけて薄めるべき悲しみが、一度に押し寄せる。そりゃ、辛いわけさ。時には人の生涯に傷を残すほど深い悲しみを与えることもあるかもしれない。
生涯に傷を残すほど。
For the rest of your short life. You've been changing music quite quickly.
じいさまのオカルト趣味もさ、
Okay.
そうささやかれてたんだよな。例のベアトリーチェって愛人を大昔に亡くして、それが悲しくて悲しくて立ち直れなくて、それで死者を蘇らせるためのオカルトの研究にノクソをささやかれてた。
だとしたら、じいさまは最後の土壇場でその奇跡を成し遂げたな。犯人は蘇ったベアトリーチェで、じいさまは殺される瞬間に再会できたってことになるぜ。自分で蘇らせて、それに殺されるとは皮肉な話さ。
それでもおじいさまは会えたんだろうね。人生の半分を賭して、もう一度会いたいと願った女性に、わずかなひとときとはいえ再会できたんだろうね。
丸焼きにされちまったけどな。人生の半分をかけた研究にしては ちょいと割の合わない成果だろうぜ。
そんなことはないよ。たとえほんのひとときであったとしても、愛した女性に再会できたおじい様は幸せだったはずさ。仮に生命の摂理に逆らった罪を神に咎められて、その身を焼かれ地獄に落とされたとしても、その見返りの再会がほんのわずかな時間だったとしてもね。
上司兄さん、
神の怒りに触れてこの身を焼かれようとも構わない。わずかな時間でもいいからシャノンを再び蘇らせてくれるなら、僕は残りの人生すべてを5分でいいからシャノンともう一度言葉を交わしたい。1分でもいいから。それと引き換えに全ての人生を捧げても僕は構わない。
兄貴。
Ambassador and Jessica realized that their pointless discussion was causing George pain. They could do nothing more than shut their mouths. George directed his thoughts to Kinzo's life. He sacrificed half his life to research that no one understood. And on the last day of his life, he revived the person he loved most, and probably succeeded in his reunion in his final moments. George didn't know how much time they had had together. He didn't know if they'd been given an hour or just 5 minutes. However, that moment must have been enough to reward him for all those months of research. Even though he spent dozens of years to achieve it, that small amount of time was probably more than worth it to him. Until today, I never believed in the occult or magic or anything. Somewhere in my heart, I even made fun of grandfather's research, thinking of it as nothing more than a pastime. However, I won't make fun of it again, anymore. No, to the contrary, I'll believe strongly that it's real. If the power of belief can create miracles, I'll probably throw away all of my studies up until today, spending the rest of my life from today onwards studying magic. Give me the power of magic, and give me a miracle that will let me see Shannon again. Oh, okay. Those are George's thoughts. Okay, that makes a lot more sense than if they were Battler's thoughts. Battler suddenly declaring that he'll believe in magic. That being said, he did have that red shield thing come up.
ごめんよみんな。僕もどうかしてる。魔法で死者が蘇るくらいだったら世界中の人々が魔法を学ぶだろうね。でも現実にはそんなことはない。誰も学ばない。死者が魔法では蘇らないって知っているから。ごめんよ、妙なことを言い出して。僕のせいでおかしな空気になっちゃったね。みんなだって辛いだろうに。気を使わせてごめん。
Even if I did it to divert myself from my sadness, maybe I did say something strange. If I keep talking about stuff that's so weird, I'm sure it won't do anything good for their sadness. But that doesn't mean I can bear this silence.
僕は下に行ってもう一杯コーヒーをもらってくる。
Be careful.
うちの母さん、コーヒーの入れ方にはこだわりがあるんだよ。みんなもおかわりはいるかい？
Battler-kun and Jessica-chan lightly shook their heads. Without pressing them any further, I took my mug and left the room. The shutters were all closed in the hallways, so the corridor was very dim. I tried visiting Dr. Nunge's room and asking if he wanted more coffee, but he said he didn't need any either. It seems my mother's orthodox method of making coffee isn't universally appreciated. One time I made some for Shannon, but she told me that while it was delicious, it was a little strong.
シャノン
That's no good. Even though I left the room to change my mood, that image of Shannon's face filling my head hasn't faded in the slightest. I keep seeing those fun days of her, more and more vividly. And it's saddening that I never even got a chance to see her dead face. I feel like this is maybe going to tie into something with the Golden Land, perhaps. According to our parents, she was apparently killed with something like a gun or a spear. I'm sure that they were just trying to console me. They had said her dead face had been very beautiful and peaceful. I wonder if she had the engagement ring I gave her last night on her finger. If she accepted my engagement, you should have had it on the ring finger of her left hand. Last night, we were both on the edge of losing it and not calm at all. Shannon accepted my engagement pretty courageously, but she might have regretted that rash action once she cooled her head. She might have taken the ring off. I wonder if she has the ring on now. I want to be sure of at least that much. I want to know how she felt at the very end. But even if I do confirm that, it doesn't mean she'll come back. I wonder what will happen to her body. After the autopsy, it will probably be immediately cremated. Then, I'll never be able to see her face, even her dead face, for all eternity.
僕はシャノンを失ったショックで少しおかしくなってるのかな
Possibly. I don't want her body to be burned. If she's burned and turned to ash, never again will it be possible for her to revive. They say cremation is frowned upon in Western tradition, because on the day of resurrection there would be no body to revive. Because of that, it seems that great criminals in Western history were often cremated after execution as punishment, and their ashes were sometimes scattered in rivers and such. In other words, to Western people, death is nothing more than a sleep until the resurrection. It is essential that the corpse is left after death.
つまりそれは西洋人は死者が蘇る奇跡の存在を知っていたからなんだでも日本にはその奇跡がなかったから焼いてしまうんだ
Now I understand. I understand why grandfather idolized the Western occult. That was his only reason from the very beginning. Just to revive a person dear to him. Grandfather spent the rest of his remaining life researching the Western occult. The situation surrounding us now is normal. Grandfather did revive his beloved Beatrice. And that Beatrice has carried out a terrible serial murder. With linked closed rooms that forced us to conclude that magic was used. The Golden Witch Beatrice, the incarnation of a miracle of a Western occult. And also, the culprit who killed Shannon. She's an entity I should hate, and yet, for some reason, I want to cling to her. I wonder if Shannon could be revived with magic of miracles, which grandfather bet his life on. According to the legend of the Yoshimiya family, grandfather met with her long ago and was given a vast quantity of gold. Then, if I also met with her, instead of gold, would she give me Shannon's life? As collateral, I don't care what sort of devil's contract she imposed. I wouldn't mind sacrificing all of my remaining life. George probably couldn't believe or realize that his voiceless wish was heard by the witch herself, who stood right behind him. Beatrice had been listening to that entire discussion between the children just now in the cousins' room. Battler had told her that she didn't know the value of a human's life. Wanting to understand that in her own way, she had stealthily visited, listening in on their discussion.
それが願いだというのか。それを叶えれば、わらわは魔女だと認められるのか。
Beato looked at the palm of both of her hands. She'd handed over most of her once surging magical power when the new witch succeeded the name of the Endless Witch. Of course, her current power still made her worthy of being called a witch, but it could not begin to compare to her previous strength.
無限の魔法などなくとも、わらわは千年に名を轟かす大魔女であるぞ。
So, I guess that it's the same sentience but two different existences between Witch World Beatrice and Game World Beatrice. Witch World Beatrice will still have that same power, but Game World Beatrice is limited. However, still has the knowledge of the Witch World Beatrice.
死者を蘇らすなど、造作もないことよ。
Inside her head, she thought about several magical steps she could take to revive the dead. Even magic that should have been easy in the past would be difficult with her current power. She thought of something, then clicked her tongue, and did so again, over and over. In the end, she finally thought of a single spell. But that was the spell that she couldn't use by herself. It was a spell that witches with weak power used, one that relied on the aid of others. In the past, Beata had looked down upon that type of magic. Therefore, she frantically tried to search for any conceivable alternative. But in the end, she couldn't think of one and slumped over in self-derision. Then, careful not to surprise him, she softly called out, softly to George's heart. Why does it need someone else's aid?
後ろ宮ジョージ、わらわの声が聞こえるか。
聞こえるとも。あなたは誰だい？本当に魔女のベアトリーチェ？それとも僕の悲しみが生んだ幻想なのか？もしも前者だったなら僕の願いを聞いてほしい。そして後者なら僕をそっとしておいてほしい。
Their conversation in a mental world was a lot like having one in a dream. When you dream, haven't you ever had the experience of casually accepting something that would have been absurd in the real world? The conversation in this world was like that. So even though a witch appeared and started talking to George, he was not surprised.
わらわが黄金の魔女ベアトリーチェである。本来わらわとそなたはこうして会話を交わすことなどできん。しかしそなたがわらわのことを強く意識し会話を望むから。
Is it because he accepted magic?
こうして互いのチャンネルを合わせることができる。
シャノンを殺したのがあなたなのか、あなたを名乗る何者かの仕業なのか、僕はどうでもいい。ただあなたが本当の魔女として存在しているならば、どんな対価にも応じる。僕の命を望むなら今すぐに捧げてもいい。どうかシャノンを生き返らせてほしい。それが無理ならせめてわずかの間話をさせてくれるだけでもいい。お願いだ。
対価はいらぬ。その願い。
本当にシャノンを。
だが反言の魔法を扱うには今のわらわには魔力が足りぬ。
I guess her own resurrection ceremony is something different.
だからそなたの手を借りねばならぬ。
Compared to just reviving a human.
僕にできることならどんなことでも。それが僕の心臓を今すぐこの場で取り出すことであったとしても、僕は躊躇しない。
そんなものいらぬというのに、わらわは魔法を唱える。
Repeat after me.
さすれば冥府の扉に隙間ができよう。だが今のわらわにはその隙間よりシャノンの魂を連れ出せるほどの力はない。しかしシャノンのことを強く思うそなたなら
You might be able to do it.
その思いを魔力に変えて彼女の魂を必ずや連れ戻せるだろう。どうだ、わらわを手伝うか。
手伝うとも。シャノンの命が蘇るなら僕は何を失うことも恐れない。
George's fist shook in silence. Then he slowly came to his senses. He had been absent-mindedly standing near the window in the hall that whole time, his mug still in his hand. And the witch from his dream was still there.
そんな夢じゃない。
And I'll be ending it there for today on that note. Yeah, I guess we'll see where this goes. I hope you've all enjoyed. Let me know any feedback you have in the comments. And until next time, see ya.